Sub-officer, tell me this isn't happening again.
Sir, it walked straight through the field, like it wasn't even there.
Fleet Commander Drath Austin had personally signed the retreat orders for 3 border wars. He had never once signed a retreat order against a garden. He signed one today. I don't know anything about that, obviously. All I know is that my knees hate the hill more than they used to, and that Abel always said carnations were for people who didn't try. So every morning, rain, ashfall, or whatever the local weather app calls the orange fog we get in spring, I climb the rise behind the outpost with 6 wildflowers wrapped in a rubber band, whistle whatever song gets stuck in my head that week, and tell him about it. It doesn't take long. Nothing much happens out here. That's sort of the point. Sub-Officer Prel Vashtu had flagged the anomaly 11 years into her first border posting, back when she still thought anomaly meant something interesting. A single life signature, human pattern, appearing at the same coordinates at the same local hour every single solar cycle for as long as the Directorate's listening posts had kept records. She assumed it was a maintenance drone with a badly written schedule. She filed it as routine. Then, mostly out of boredom on a slow shift, she pulled the archive. The archive went back 206 years. The signature had never once missed a day. Prel told herself there had to be an explanation, a relay station, a memorial beacon, something automated and dull. She widened the scan window and found the truth was worse. It wasn't a machine at all. It was warm. It breathed. And whatever it was, it had been walking up that same hill since before her grandmother's grandmother was born. She flagged it to her superior with a single line, requesting guidance. This doesn't behave like anything we've cataloged. What kind of thing does that? And why had no one ever asked? Dr. Issacharan got the file next because Dr. Issacharan got every file nobody else wanted to keep. She ran the biometrics twice, assuming corrupted data. The readings held. Cellular degradation consistent with organic aging, not stasis, not synthetic replication. This thing was growing old the ordinary way, one slow year at a time, and yet it had outlasted 4 regional governors, 2 localized wars, and a magnetic storm that had scoured the northern hemisphere of the same moon down to bedrock. The storm alone should have ended it. Storms like that had ended Directorate listening posts built to survive worse. Run it again, Issa told her assistant, for the 3rd time that night. It has to be logging a substitute. Nothing organic, just keeps going. The numbers came back the same. So why was the signature still logging in the next morning? Same hour, same 6-object cluster in its hand, like nothing had happened at all. Today the fog is doing that thing where it sits low in the valley and makes the whole outpost look like it's steaming. I like it, honestly. Makes the walk feel important, like I'm hiking somewhere instead of just going up a hill I've gone up 11,000-something times. I told Abel that once, and he said I was getting soft in my old age. That was funny because at the time neither of us knew how old age was actually going to get. There's a little gray thing that lives in the rocks near the marker, not a pet, I keep telling myself, just a neighbor, and it's gotten used to me talking too. I've started saving it half a biscuit. Cheap rent for good company. Fleet Commander Drath Austin had wanted proof before he escalated anything, so 3 cycles ago, he authorized what the reports now euphemistically call environmental deterrence. A quarantine field, tuned to keep local wildlife off the ridge without harming it, humane, deniable, invisible from the ground. It should have turned the signature back at the boundary line without it ever noticing anything was there. It walked through the field 40 minutes later, on schedule, humming. Run diagnostics, Drath said, very calmly, to a room that had gone very quiet. The field failed. The technician didn't look up from her console. The field didn't fail, sir. The field worked exactly as designed. It just didn't matter. Drath had commanded fleets that broke formation under 1/10 of that kind of pressure. He stared at the readout for a long time before he asked the only question that mattered, not what could survive that field, but what didn't know to be afraid of it in the first place. They tried once more, and this time they didn't hide it. A full sensor blackout, a false quake alert broadcast to every local receiver, evacuation sirens screaming down the valley loud enough to strip paint off the outpost walls. Every recorded instance of the signature's long history showed it reacting to genuine danger exactly like anything alive should, flinching, ducking, once even flat on its stomach, through what turned out to be an actual meteor shower 2 decades back. Command was almost relieved. At least it could be frightened. At least it was, in some sense, sane. It heard the sirens. It looked up at the ridge. It kept climbing. Prowl requested reassignment after that. Command denied it. They informed her, now the Directorate's leading subject matter expert on the anomaly, a title she had never asked for and did not want, earned entirely by being the first person unlucky enough to notice. She spent the next month rereading the same 200 years of logs, looking for the one day it would finally stop. There wasn't one. Every entry read the same as the last, patient and unremarkable, which was somehow so much worse than if even one of them hadn't. Issa was the one who finally translated the marker, because someone eventually had to try. It had taken her team weeks, since the language wasn't built for xenolinguists. Small, hand-carved, badly weathered, clearly made by someone with no resources and no intention of ever being read by the stars. 7 words, repeated with slight variation across 2 centuries of tiny offerings left at its base. Told you I'd come back for you. That was when Prell stopped calling it the signature. That was when Draith stopped calling it a threat assessment. And that was when the Ashvane Directorate, an empire that had annexed 9 star systems without once losing a formation to panic, quietly agreed, at the highest levels of command, that whatever this creature was, it could not be stopped by weather, war, quarantine fields, false alarms, 2 centuries of erosion, or, as far as anyone could prove, death itself. It simply did not register any of those things as a reason to stop. It understood only the one thing it had decided to do, on some ordinary morning 200 years ago, and it had apparently never once reconsidered. Nobody, not one committee, not one weapon, not one empire, had found the thing that could make it change its mind. I sat down next to the marker the way I always do, and my knees made the noise they always make, and I told him about the fog and about how the strawberries in the back plot finally came in good this year, and about the lights that show up sometimes at the edge of the ridge, which I've decided are just some kind of local weather thing, because what else would they be, way out here? He never talks back, obviously. That's fine. I do enough talking for both of us. I left the flowers where he likes them, told him I'd see him tomorrow like always, and headed back down the hill for dinner, knees complaining the whole way, Grey neighbor trotting a polite distance behind for his biscuit. Sub-Officer Prel Vashtu watched the readout log another uneventful cycle, and did not file it as routine. Not anymore. Dr. Issa Koren stopped trying to explain the biometrics and started, quietly, leaving a small smooth stone of her own at the base of the marker whenever she visited, because it felt wrong not to. And Fleet Commander Draith Ossen, who had never lost a single war to a garden and did not intend to start now, issued exactly one standing order regarding the ridge. Nobody touches it, nobody studies it further, and nobody, under any circumstances, tells the old man to stop. I did notice the flowers up there seemed to be multiplying a little faster than usual this year, but I figure that's just good soil. Tomorrow I'll climb the hill again, knees permitting.